Scorpio, you move through the world with an instinct sharpened by years of surviving the kind of emotional terrain that would break other people. You read intentions in silence. You track hidden meanings in gestuures. You feel danger before it even takes form. And because of this, you have always believed that nothing could catch you off guard, that no revelation could truly shake you, that whatever the universe throws at you, you will sense it long before it reaches your door. Yet what approaches you in the final days of November is not something outside of you, not a betrayal hiding behind a familiar smile, is not a threat waiting in the shadows you know so well, but a truth that rises from inside, a truth you have buried so deep beneath layers of control, composure, and survival instincts that even your intuition, as powerful as it is, has learned to walk around it instead of confronting it head-on. This is why you are not ready, not because you are weak or unprepared, but because you have become a master at hiding certain truths from even yourself. For so long, you have carried an image of yourself that feels unshakable, a version built from pain that hardened into discipline, from betrayal that sharpened into clarity, from loss that transformed into resilience. And this version of you, the one who never flinches, never collapses, never shows fear, has served you well, guarding you through winters of heartbreak, through emotional wars others never knew you were fighting, through transformations that left old versions of you scattered like ashes behind your path. You learned early that survival required silence, stillness, self-control, and secrecy. And from those lessons, you built a persona that looks invincible from the outside. But inside that armor, there is a truth you haven't allowed yourself to acknowledge. A truth that has been calling quietly from the deepest chambers of your emotional world, waiting for the moment when the universe decides you can no longer avoid it. In the last week of November, that moment arrives, and the universe will bring you face to face with a part of yourself you've kept sealed away. A part that contradicts the story you tell yourself about who you are. A part that asks you to admit something you have never wanted to say out loud, that your strength, your independence, your emotional self-sufficiency are not your only truth. That beneath the intensity you project and the control you maintain, there is a human being carrying exhaustion, fear, longing, and vulnerability you have refused to show. Not because you're ashamed of it, but because every time you allowed someone to see it in the past, they mishandled it, misunderstood it, or weaponized it against you. So you closed the doors, locked the gates, and convinced yourself that this version, the one who needs nothing from anyone, is the real you. But Scorpio, you and I both know it isn't. This revelation will not come gently. It will not come in a whisper. It will arrive through an experience that cracks your armor in a way you cannot control. Something that forces you to stop performing the strength others have always expected from you. Something that pushes you into a moment of emotional nakedness that feels almost unbearable. Not because vulnerability is bad, but because it's unfamiliar. Because you forgot how it feels to be seen without your mask. And at first, you may resist. You may try to hold the pieces together. You may attempt to retreat into your familiar shadows, but the situation will not allow it. This time, you cannot disappear, cannot withdraw, cannot pretend you feel nothing when everything inside you is shifting like tectonic plates. This week, this moment, this breaking point, it will challenge your pride in a way you've never experienced, because it forces you to reconsider the entire identity you've spent years perfecting. Have you built your emotional world on the belief that you must always be the strong one? That you must always be the one who survives alone? That you must always be the one who understands others but never lets anyone understand you? Have you convinced yourself that needing anyone is dangerous? That letting someone in is a vulnerability you cannot afford? That if people see your fear, your doubt, or your longing, They will use it to hurt you. These beliefs were born from trauma, from past betrayals, from moments when the wrong person held too much of you, and you swore you would never let that happen again. But these beliefs are now limiting you, and the universe is preparing to tear them down. You are about to learn that the real danger is not vulnerability itself, but the way you have imprisoned your own heart to avoid it. The universe is not trying to expose you to harm. It is trying to free you from the emotional armor that kept you alive but now keeps you from evolving. And Scorpio, evolution is your destiny. Transformation is your nature. You do not grow in stillness, you grow in fire, in collapse, in surrender, in the death of old identities that no longer serve your becoming. That is what the last week of November is awakening within you, a rebirth you cannot delay, a transformation you cannot postpone, a truth you cannot keep burying. You will experience moments that feel like emotional earthquakes, moments where you might cry without warning, moments where you realize how tired you truly are of carrying everything alone, moments where you want to rest your head somewhere safe and finally exhale. And if you allow yourself to feel these moments instead of resisting them, you will discover something extraordinary, that the world does not reject you when you stop performing strength. It meets you where you are. It softens around you. It embraces you. It mirrors your truth instead of demanding your performance. And Scorpio, that is the beginning. The crack that lets the light in. The fracture that becomes the doorway. The first death before the rebirth. Scorpio. The second wave of this transformation will hit you where you least expect it, slipping through cracks you didn't realize had formed in your armor. Not through some dramatic confrontation or betrayal, but through a slow erosion of the emotional control you've relied on for years, the control that has allowed you to maintain distance, silence, and precision in every interaction. You have lived so long believing that the only safe way to exist is to predict every outcome, to protect every vulnerability, to hold yourself in check so tightly that no one ever sees you unravel. Yet the end of November brings circumstances that loosen your grip, not by force but by truth, by the slow but undeniable realization that the identity you have clung to is dissolving, that the role you have played so flawlessly is beginning to feel heavy on your skin, like a costume that no longer fits the shape of who you're becoming. You will feel the shift in subtle ways at first, in moments where your usual instinct to remain detached falters, where your reactions feel raw, unfiltered, more honest than you intended them to be, where your eyes betray emotions before you have time to hide them, where someone asks a simple question and suddenly you feel a tremor in your voice, a softness that once would have terrified you. These small slips are not failures, they are the universe preparing you for a deeper release. For Scorpios born between October 23rd and November 1st, this softening comes through long-standing family dynamics or responsibilities you thought you could manage alone, suddenly forcing you to accept that the weight has grown too heavy and that asking for help is no longer a choice but a necessity. For those born between November 2nd and November 12th, the shift emerges through relationships you've kept at an emotional distance, the kind of connections where you've allowed others only shallow access while maintaining the illusion of closeness. And now those people begin to see the parts of you you've tried hardest to conceal. And for Scorpios born between November 13th and November 21st, the breakthrough comes from within, through desires you suppressed, fears you denied, and emotional truths you buried so deeply that their resurfacing feels like a haunting. You will find yourself confronted with the discomfort of being seen in ways you did not consent. And for someone as private as you, this exposure feels dangerous, like stepping into a room without your armor or entering a battlefield without your weapons. But the universe is showing you that the danger is not in being seen, it is in continuing to live behind a mask that no longer protects you. The exhaustion you've been carrying, the heaviness beneath your ribs, the quiet ache behind your strength, all of it will rise to the surface in ways you can no longer ignore. You will feel moments where the urge to retreat becomes overwhelming, where every instinct tells you to disappear, to shut down, to rebuild your walls higher than before, but something deeper within you will resist that impulse. A voice that whispers that running is no longer survival but self-destruction. This is the phase where the illusion of control collapses, not as an act of punishment, but as an act of liberation. Stripping away the layers of performance you've maintained for the sake of protecting your heart. And in these moments of emotional exposure, when your guard slips, when your voice shakes, when your truth spills out in unexpected ways, you will witness something extraordinary. The world does not fall apart when you stop pretending to be invulnerable. People do not flee when you show them the fragility beneath your fire. They do not lose respect for you when you let your truth breathe. Instead, they move closer. They offer understanding. They soften in response to your rawness. And this softness disarms you in ways control never could. The hardest part of this transition is that you will have to choose between clinging to your old identity or surrendering to the emergence of your real one. You will have to decide whether maintaining the mask is worth the suffocating silence it demands, whether staying unreadable is worth the loneliness it breeds, whether performing strength is worth the emotional starvation it inflicts on your soul. Scorpio. The truth is simple. You are tired. Tired of carrying everything alone. Tired of pretending certain wounds have healed. Tired of being the strong one even when your spirit is weary. And the end of November will force you to admit this exhaustion not as a weakness but as a doorway. The universe is offering you a chance to stop surviving and start living. A chance to release the suffocating grip of control. A chance to feel without fear. To connect without calculation. To speak without rehearsing every sentence in your mind. The mask is cracking. And for the first time in a long time, light is getting in. Let it. This is the beginning of your becoming all. As the transformation deepens, Scorpio, you will begin to feel the collapse of your old identity in a way that is not merely emotional but physical. Like a pressure behind your ribs that grows heavier each day. Like a tightness in your chest when someone asks how you're doing and you instinctively lie. Like a burning behind your eyes when the truth rises too quickly for you to swallow it back down. The final week of November becomes the crucible in which every false version of yourself, every persona shaped by pain, every mask carved from past betrayals, every layer of emotional armor you once needed for survival begins to melt away, revealing a truth. You have spent years outrunning that you have become so used to performing strength that you've forgotten what genuine strength feels like. That you have lived so long behind emotional walls that you no longer remember what connection feels like. That you have been so committed to being unreadable that even you have forgotten what your soul actually wants. This is the moment where your rehearsed identity fractures, where the polished, controlled, unshakable version of you can no longer hold together under the weight of your own evolution. You will find yourself staring at parts of your life that once felt stable and suddenly feel hollow, noticing conversations where you speak out of habit rather than truth, noticing relationships that survive only because you never let them see the real you, noticing dreams you once claimed as yours that no longer feel aligned with the person rising from your depths. You will feel lost, disoriented, suspended between who you were and who you are becoming. And this in-between space, this liminal darkness, is where the real Scorpio rebirth begins. In this phase, moments of extreme self-awareness will strike you unexpectedly, as if a mirror has been held up to your soul without warning. You may be in the middle of a conversation and suddenly feel the weight of how much you've been pretending. You may be alone in your room when a wave of emotion hits you so forcefully that you can't hold it back. You may find yourself admitting something out loud, a fear, a désir, a truth you never planned to voice. And the shocking part is not that the truth emerges, but that it feels like a relief. Like finally exhaling after holding your breath for years. Like letting your heart unclench for the first time in a decade. This is also the stage where your instincts sharpen to a level you haven't experienced before. Not the survival instincts that protect you from danger, but the intuitive clarity that tells you exactly who belongs in your life and who doesn't, who sees your soul and who only wants your mystery, who loves you and who clings to the version of you that benefits them. You will become acutely aware of the emotional contracts you've been maintaining, silent agreements where you play a role for others while starving your own authenticity, and you will begin to feel a fierce, almost primal urge to break those contracts once and for all. For many Scorpios, this revelation comes through a moment of vulnerability you cannot stop. A moment where someone witnesses you without your armor on and responds, not with judgment but with compassion. And this compassion destabilizes you more than cruelty ever could. Because cruelty, you know how to fight. But compassion disarms you, opens your chest, forces you to confront the truth that you want to be seen, that you want to be understood, that you want connection. After all, even if you fear it, for others, the revelation comes through an internal breakdown when your emotions erupt from the depths you've kept sealed, demanding your attention, demanding to be felt, demanding to be heard. You may cry uncontrollably, not from weakness, but from release. You may confess truths you've hidden from yourself. You may feel the ghost of an old version of you rising to the surface, asking to be acknowledged, asking to be freed. And in these moments, something sacred begins to happen. You stop resisting yourself. You stop fighting your own depths. You stop running from the parts of you that deserve love the most. This is the revelation that changes everything. You realize that the parts of you've spent years hiding, your vulnerability, your longing, your fragility are not weaknesses, but the gateways to your real power, your authenticity. The part you've buried beneath survival is the part the world has been waiting for. And as the last days of November pull you deeper into this emotional awakening, you will discover a truth so simple and yet so radical that it dismantles everything you thought you knew about yourself. Your strength was never your invincibility. It was your ability to break and still rise, to feel deeply and still survive, to love fiercely even when your heart is afraid. Scorpio, this is the moment you stop pretending and start becoming. As the emotional ground beneath you shifts, Scorpio, you will begin to sense the death of an identity you once believed was unbreakable. Not a violent death, not an ending marked by chaos, but a slow and inevitable dissolution, like watching a mask you've worn for years crack along invisible fault lines, revealing skin beneath that has not felt the air in a very long time. This is the phase of transformation you know intimately. The stage where everything familiar becomes foreign, where the tools that once protected you begin to feel like chains, where the personas that once empowered you now suffocate you. And although you've walked through many personal deaths before, this one feels different because it is the death of the identity you clung to the hardest, the one you thought you could never live without. You will find yourself waking up with a feeling that something inside you has shifted overnight, as if an old version of you has finally decided to step aside, leaving behind a space that feels both terrifying and exhilarating. There may be moments when you look at your life and feel detached from the things you once fought so desperately to maintain the relationships you protected out of habit, the roles you performed because they were expected of you, the emotional walls you believed were essential for your survival. These walls begin to crumble now, not through force, but through irrelevance. You no longer resonate with the things that once defined you. And this dissonance creates an internal tension that is impossible to ignore. This tension, the pull between who you were and who you are becoming, feels like standing on the threshold between two worlds. You may feel moments of clarity followed by moments of profound confusion, moments of lightness followed by moments of emotional heaviness, moments where you feel ready to step forward, and moments where fear asks you to step back. But Scorpio, you cannot return to your old self even if you try. That version of you has completed its purpose. It was built from wounds that have finally begun to heal, from fears that no longer control you, from survival mechanisms that no longer fit the shape of your soul. The universe is gently, insistently, pulling you out of the cocoon that once kept you safe, urging you toward a form of authenticity you've never allowed yourself to embody before. As this death unfolds, you might notice a strange emotional quiet inside you. Not numbness, not emptiness, but a silence that feels like a pause between breaths. A moment of suspension before the rebirth begins. This is the moment when the universe clears your internal landscape, removing the emotional clutter that has weighed you down, preparing you for the expansion to come. You may feel detached from certain people, even those you once relied on. You may feel distant from old desires, old ambitions, old passions. You may feel a strange neutrality towards situations that once triggered you, as if something deep inside has finally released its grip. And although this detachment may confuse you, it is a sign that your soul is preparing for a new alignment. Rebirth does not happen in chaos alone. Sometimes it happens in stillness, in the quiet after the storm, in the realization that you are no longer the person who walked into the fire. And in this stillness, you will begin to feel something unfamiliar rising within you, an emotional clarity that doesn't depend on control, an inner strength that doesn't need armor, a self-assurance that isn't tied to survival. You may begin to feel drawn to people who see you, not the performance, not the intensity, but the softness beneath. You may feel a spark of creative truth that has been waiting years to emerge. A voice inside you that no longer wants to be filtered, polished, or dimmed. This new version of you does not apologize for its depth, does not hide its sensitivity, does not fear being misunderstood. It exists for its own truth, not for anyone's expectations. As the rebirth begins, you will also notice opportunities appearing in places where previously there was resistance, as if the universe has been waiting for you to shed your old identity before granting you access to the next chapter. New connections may emerge, not built on karma or pain, but on resonance. New paths may open, not out of obligation, but out of authenticity. New desire may surface, revealing dreams you once buried because they didn't fit the armor you wore. And through all of this, you will feel a growing sense of liberation, a feeling that perhaps for the first time in your life you are not living in response to the past, but in alignment with the future. This is the essence of Scorpio rebirth, not a return to who you were, but an emergence into who you were always meant to become. And as the old self dies peacefully, the new self rises quietly, powerfully, undeniably. You are stepping into a version of yourself that no longer needs to hide to survive. You are becoming the truth beneath the mask. Scorpio. As the final wave of this transformation approaches, the universe is asking you to sit with a truth you have avoided your entire life. A truth so simple yet so piercing that it dismantles every belief you've built for the sake of survival. You do not need to be invincible to be powerful, and you do not need to be unreadable to be safe. You have lived through lifetimes of emotional storms, carrying the weight of memories that would crush ordinary hearts, carrying pain without flinching, carrying secrets without trembling. And because of this, you have mistaken endurance for identity, mistaking your capacity to survive anything as the proof that you must survive everything alone. But the end of November arrives with a different kind of lesson, one that doesn't tear you apart, but opens you in a way your soul has been waiting for. A lesson that reveals the bars of a cage you didn't realize you built around your own heart. This is the moment the universe asks you to release the belief that you must perform strength for people to respect you. The belief that you must hide your fear for people to stay. The belief that revealing your needs will make you vulnerable to betrayal. Scorpio, the world has changed around you, and the dangers you once suffered are no longer standing at your door. Yet your heart is still reacting to ghosts, protecting itself from shadows long gone. The end of November brings you to a crossroads where you must decide whether you will continue living inside wounds that no longer bleed or whether you will finally allow those wounds to become wisdom. This choice determines not only the next chapter of your life, but the quality of connection, love, and intimacy you are able to receive from the world. You will soon realize that the relationships which truly matter are not the ones that admire your strength, but the ones that can hold your softness. Not the ones who praise your mystery, but the ones who understand your silence. Not the ones who fear your intensity, but the ones who know how to navigate it without flinching. You will feel the universe guiding you toward people who do not need you to dim your depth or dilute your truth to be palatable. People who want to meet you at the level of your soul instead of the level of your performance. And in this realization, something even more powerful will happen. You will begin to feel safe enough to let go of the armor that has weighed heavily on your spirit for years. As you step into this new phase, you will discover that the version of you that emerges from this transformation is not weaker, but infinitely stronger. Because your strength will no longer be built on hardness, but on authenticity. No longer be built on suppression, but on clarity. No longer be built on fear, but on truth. You will understand that the invincibility you once chased was nothing more than a desperate attempt to prevent loss, abandonment, or betrayal. And yet what truly protects you now is not the walls you built, but the wisdom you gained from everything that once broke you. You will stop fighting for control because you will begin to realize that true power comes not from clinging, but from allowing. Not from predicting, but from trusting. Not from performing, but from being. This shift will ripple through every aspect of your life. Your creativity will come alive in ways you've suppressed for years, because expression no longer has to be perfect to be valid. Your relationships will deepen because connection no longer feels dangerous. Your intuition will sharpen because your mind is no longer clouded by fear. And, most importantly, your soul will feel lighter, because the universe has taken back the weight you were never meant to carry alone. The last week of November will feel like stepping through a doorway into a life that is finally aligned with the person you have always been beneath the armor, a life where you are no longer shrinking to protect yourself, no longer pretending to be unaffected when you are touched deeply, no longer dimming your light to avoid intimidating those who were never meant to stay. It is a life where your depth becomes a gift rather than a burden, where your vulnerability becomes a bridge rather than a weakness, where your truth becomes your greatest source of beauty. This transformation does not require preparation, it requires permission. Permission to let go, permission to feel, permission to receive, permission to be seen without the mask, permission to walk into a future shaped not by your wounds, but by your becoming. Scorpio, you are not meant to survive quietly anymore. You are meant to rise visibly. You are meant to live fully. You are meant to love fiercely. And now, as the universe opens this final doorway for you, the only question remaining is whether you will allow yourself to step through it.